Before we get started, here are a few words from our very own Mayor Miller.
Hello, everybody. I'm Howard Miller, the mayor of Saratoga. So I want to thank the Library Teen Advisory Board, supported by the Saratoga Youth Commission, for organizing today's SED Talk. Today's guest speakers are about mental health, which in today's world matters for everybody of all ages. And while this group may be teen focused, the things that will be talked about today, I think, are going to be skills and strategies and perspectives that are going to be good for life. I know we talk about health all the time, and it's about, having good nutritious meals and staying active and getting enough sleep. Yes, definitely teenagers, please get enough sleep, and it doesn't only have to happen on Saturday and Sunday. There's a real big issue right now in America, and that's our mental health. And as a nation and as a city, we're going through a really stressful time. And so I am super pleased and very excited that you guys have taken this on as a key topic. And again, I am sure today you are going to learn things and get perspectives that you've never had before that are going to help you and those around you today and for the rest of your life. And with that, I will be here watching and listening, but I'll be out of your way. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor Miller. So as Mayor Miller alluded to, SED Talks is a speaker series focused on overcoming obstacles for teens, co-hosted by the Saratoga Library Teen Advisory Board and the Saratoga Youth Commission. Today's series is about mental health and personal well-being, and our speakers will be sharing their unique experiences.
Our first speaker is Nicole Desai. He is a senior at Saratoga High School who will be sharing his personal experiences with his mental health as he grew up in an unforgiving environment.
Next, Jill Henderson, life strategist and empowerment coach, here to prepare us for life's inevitable highs and lows with her universal truths and getting our grab bag.
And finally, Dr. Eisenberg will be presenting his research involving trends in mental health and accessing services for adolescents.
After our speakers have presented, we'll be having a short Q&A session where the audience can ask our speakers any questions they may have. If you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to put them in the chat and specify to whom you're directing this question, and our speakers will be able to answer them at the end.
And now we'll be hearing from our first speaker, Nicole Desai. As I said before, Nicole is a senior at Saratoga High School. He has faced significant stigma due to his mental health struggles in both his personal life and as a student in the Bay Area. And he will be discussing how he found the volition to advocate for himself and get personal health. So Nicole, you can get started.
All right, can you guys hear me? Yeah?
We can hear you.
All right. The year was 2014. I was in math class and the clock arms appeared frozen at 7:45 p.m. 15 more minutes? Is it broken? No, I need to focus on these geometry problems. I need to stop messing this up. I stared at the worksheet for what seemed like hours, but my mind was blank. I shivered at the thought of how I needed an A on the next test, without questioning why I was stressed over an extracurricular math class. The months passed by and I continued to struggle, wondering whether I would ever amount to anything in life. I was born in Dallas, Texas, but I moved to San Jose when I was 2 years old, so I basically lived here my entire life, and I grew up with Bay Area culture. I was constantly told to prioritize my grades and academics over anything else. I was just blindly following it without questioning it. By third grade, I was in several extracurriculars trying to get ahead and push myself academically. I had high expectations for myself, but I never paid any attention to my well-being and how stressed out I was. I tried my best to live up to the expectations others had for me, and unfortunately, I'm paying the price for that now. Unknown to me at the time, I'm now aware that I have several learning challenges, which made these extracurriculars and learning in school even more difficult and frustrating back then. The next year in fourth grade, things got pretty bad, and I started to self-harm and started having suicidal thoughts. I watched my friends breeze through and wondered if they ever felt similar, but it seemed like they never understood the intensity of what I felt. They didn't hate their lives too? This wasn't normal? Each day felt like my head was about to explode. I felt like I was stretched like a rubber band and I was about to snap. It felt like my life was ripped away from me and every small thing I enjoyed was squashed into insignificance. No more getting excited to go trick-or-treating on Halloween. No more little scooter rides with friends to the plaza. No more of the little joys that make life worth it. No more sunshine to fight the rain. No one educates younger children on mental health, but I had enough insight eventually to know that something was wrong. I just wanted an escape from my life, and I felt death was better than trying to live up to expectations. So as we were told as children to talk to an adult whenever we felt something wasn't right, that's what I did. And it didn't go well for me. I was told that children couldn't be stressed out because their lives were easy and we couldn't want to die. I was told to just be grateful for what I have in life. Hearing that made me feel hopeless and less comfortable with approaching the people around me for help. I was on a sinking ship in the middle of the ocean, and no matter how loud I screamed, no one could hear me. After that experience, I genuinely believed at the time that in reality, people don't really give a damn about you, and that I was alone in the world, and alone with my struggle. I did the best I could to hold myself together till the end of elementary school and pretended like everything was okay. Moving to Saratoga, it was another wave of overwhelming stress as I knew no one at school and I had no friends. Now, I don't remember much from middle school at all, but I do remember that sixth grade was probably the worst year in my entire life. Academically, the pressure increased, my grades suffered, and my passive suicidal thoughts quickly turned active. I was very, very angry with myself. I was angry at myself for not being able to get the grades I wanted, and I was angry at myself for not being the person I wanted to see. And then one day it clicked. It was no longer just the high expectations of people around me. I had absorbed them and made them my own expectations. There were no longer only people around me telling me that I would be a failure in life if I did not get good grades and I wasn't a stereotypical Bay Area Indian. It was also myself now. Each time someone called me lazy for trying to focus on my health, it just reinforced that negative voice in my head and ironically made me perform even worse in school and other areas of my life. I worried over every single little thing. It felt like I was running up a water slide. I worked so hard only to be dragged down again and again and again and again and got absolutely nowhere. Slowly, I realized that forgiving myself for not living up to these expectations was the only way I could move forward. I had become my own worst enemy. Forgiving myself for this took a lot of my energy and willpower, which I was limited in at the time, but I did manage to do it, and I accepted the reality of where I was currently in my life. That does not mean I closed the doors to improvement. Although that definitely did help as I wasn't constantly attacking myself as much. I was, however, still miserable. I was still in that sinking ship. Each day felt cold and miserable. It felt like there were a 100-pound bag of rocks tied to each of my limbs. It was hard to even roll out of bed, and I wish I could just keep sleeping forever and feel nothing. I didn't want to be dead exactly, but I didn't want to be alive either. It became obvious to me that no one was coming to save me from that sinking ship. Eventually, as things got worse, I learned that the only person you can 100% rely on is yourself. I, myself, would have to save me from drowning. So I pushed. I really pushed. It took all my energy at the time to push myself over that railing into a lifeboat. I advocated for myself. I said no. I decided I wasn't subjecting myself to any more BS. I was doing what was the best and healthiest for me. And obviously that angered some people, and I was labeled as a problem child. But as I grew and as I learned to stand up for myself, I learned their words and their judgments didn't matter as long as I was there for myself at the end of the day. After all, it was my life, not theirs. I focused more on validating how I was feeling by myself and from others who understood, rather than trying to gain it from people who I knew wouldn't be worth the effort. Finally, I pushed my parents to let me see a doctor. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. It was the first step to getting help. And sorry, I don't sugarcoat things, but if I hadn't done what some people would have considered rebellious, if I just continued to blindly follow what I was told, I would not be here today. So let's talk about Bay Area culture. We have so many unhappy teens because we prioritize things in our life that sacrifice our happiness just to get ahead. A great example of this is school. The point of school is supposed to be learning, right? But yet we've turned it into a competition to see who's academically superior. Kids in my generation have been taught to be so fearful of failure that we don't even want to try. We've been taught that the only way to be successful is by having a high-paying job and being at the top academically. Getting better grades can, yes, mean you're going to make more money in the future. But does it really matter if you're depressed and not even happy with your life? What's the point of that money? You can be super privileged, have everything, and at the same time have nothing. Instead of trying to find ways to boost our social status and wealth, we should focus on growing ourselves within and living in the moment. We get so lost worrying about the future in the Bay Area that we forget to enjoy what we have right now, in the present. Because at the end of the day, our happiness doesn't come from grades, it doesn't come from wealth, it doesn't come from social status, but it comes from within us, internally, and it's something we need to build up. Now, I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes, and I understand because I would have done the same thing a few years ago. But take a look deep down and observe what really makes you happy. Focus and work towards those things instead, and encourage your family and friends to do the same. After trying medication and working through therapy for years, I now have a good support system to help me with my struggles. This battle may be mine, but no longer am I alone. I'm still not happy with where my life is right now, but I'm doing a hell of a lot better than I was a few years ago. I have my own beliefs, my own expectations, and I no longer just do what I'm told. I'm no longer grade obsessed, and I strive for a happier, balanced life in the future. Many people who haven't known me for long find I'm laid back when it comes to life. Just know it came from years of foolishly, and yes, foolishly taking things too seriously and aiming to satisfy others. Now, I seek to please and impress myself only, just myself. I know some people will think with that attitude, he's never going to have a very high-paying job or go to an Ivy League school. And maybe so. But after years of being unhappy and depressed, I know I don't need more to make me feel whole. I'm going to be honest here, I didn't want to do the speech at first, because quite frankly, almost every single bit of the speech was painful and frustrating to write, and it made me extremely nervous. Public speaking freaks me out, and this is the first speech I've ever done. What pushed me through is the hope that maybe even one person would be able to better understand mental illness. Maybe even one misinformed parent would start to see someone who's depressed not as lazy or a danger to their child, but as someone who's a fellow human and shares similar experiences to them. And yes, I've seen this happen several times, which is why a lot of kids are reluctant to open up to adults around them. If I could save even one person from the misery I had to deal with, giving this speech would be well worth it. I want everyone here to understand that I could have been spared from this pain in the past 10 years of my life had mental health been taken more seriously. I can't undo mistakes of the past, but I can share my experience and hope that others will do better in the future. Parents, when your kid tells you they're stressed out and miserable, believe them. Don't call them lazy. Don't tell them what they feel is invalid because you feel your life was harder. Instead, listen to them. Empathize with them. Get them help if they need it. You're not spoiling them by doing that. You're providing them with the emotional support and care I lacked and desperately needed when I started to struggle. You're being a good parent. Thank you.
Wow, Nicole, thank you so much for sharing that. So, yeah, wow, that was really powerful. So next, we'll be hearing from our next speaker, Jill Henderson. Jill is the founder of Life Launch, an organization that teaches youth life skills to help the youth and teens take on the world. Jill has converged both her entrepreneurship spirit and her passion for helping others through her organization. And now she'll be talking more on how we can be prepared to face life.
Hi, you guys. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, but before I do that, Nakul, I have to tell you, you are a phenomenal speaker, and I so dig you. I can't even tell you. You are the perfect spokesperson of your youth and your generation. I've got chills all over my body, because you basically said everything that I really had to say, except coming from you is so far more powerful. So I'm just going to tap the surface, but I'd love to meet you sometime. I'm right across from the Saratoga fire station, and you'd be a great mentor for all the people that I work with from age 14 to 25 years old. So
Thank you.
No, thank you. Super serious. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's try to do this. Do I see share screen? Okay, I see. I'm challenged, but I'm not a quitter. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, can you guys see that? Kind of, sort of?
You
Okay.
can. Looks great.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's obviously me. So Nakul, you should write that down because you're amazing and I would love to hear your story. You're just, I can't even tell you. I'm so glad I joined this. So I am so honored to be a part of this. This is such an important and timely topic. Yeah, your well-being, like Nakul said, you know, if you don't have your health, it doesn't matter. You have absolutely nothing else, zero, zilch. So what Howard said is true too. These are not just teen stuff. This is life essentials. These are timeless life skills because there is no finish line. You're not going to cross the finish line of, okay, I'm as healthy as I need to be. I don't have to do that. That's like saying, okay, I brushed my teeth this week, so I don't have to brush my teeth for next year. It's a constant daily choice and commitment. So because I want to be sure that you guys know that I am, come on, little thing. How do I skip to my next slide? Oh, okay. So I'm a former Falcon. Yes, I am. I went to Saratoga High, graduated, go Falcons, class of 82. And I also went to Redwood, go Griffins. These are the pictures that were in the yearbook in 1982. Maybe some of your parents went to Saratoga High. I had 2 children that graduated from Saratoga High. You guys may know them, maybe not, maybe you're too young. Tanner Zuleg graduated in 2016, and Autumn Zuleg, I'm their mom. She graduated in 2019. Yeah. So I just wanted you to know, I basically grew up here and I have seen things change. I wanted to be sure that you knew that I'm part of you guys. Okay, let's go. Okay, is it gonna click? Okay, so Nakul already kind of talked about this, right? This environment, like in a world that often can feel like this fire hose of information, of expectations, competition, of achievement, this possession of wanting things, this constant comparison that you guys are thrown into this environment. You can understand how and why you're feeling like so overfed, but so completely undernourished, right? It's like you still feel overwhelmed, you're stressed, your anxiety's, just incredible. You feel behind, you feel lost. And like Nakul said, you can feel completely hopeless. And no one talks about it because if you talk about it, then people are going to see you as weak and people are going to run right over you. And there's all of the stuff that's put on this pressure of not talking about the truth. Yet, I would say most of you, the majority, feel this way. And all the kids that I work with, doesn't matter if they have a 4.4 or a 1.1, they all share the same thing. Their lives feel meaningless and they feel lost, okay? And I want to help you guys correct that. And so today is going to be a real quick little touch surface, but I want you to know that growing up, we didn't have to, my generation, we didn't have to do this. This is a fast-paced digital world and it's complicated. Social media's intentions was to create community and connection, but instead, what does it cause? It causes distraction. It causes disconnection, and it causes, quite frankly, depression. You don't feel good about yourself. So this digital world is not going away. So we have to learn how to take care of ourselves and to put our own oxygen mask on first so we can build a healthy relationship with ourselves. No one ever has taught us that. We're always saying, even in kindergarten, you got to learn how to read, you got to learn how to write. Are you better than Susie? Are you better than this? And no one ever tries to do the self-care. So that's where it really has to start. Let me go to the next one. So how do you do that, right? How do you navigate during these challenging times? Life is super easy when it's all joyful. No one needs to talk about those times. It's the inevitable highs and lows that we have. And the way that we can kind of do that, and I'm hoping I can offer this to you today, to have some kind of shift in you, to have a new perspective that you can take, that you can seed into your very fertile soil in your subconscious, is that these universal timeless truths, they will help you kind of give you a better framework to understand really kind of foundational principles and it will give you more stability. It's like just getting rooted. So the first one is, the quality of your future is determined by the quality of your now. Okay. I think you guys understand what that means, right? It's the quality of our thoughts. That determines exactly how your life is. Whatever's going on here in your head is going to be reflected how you live your life externally. They just go together. So if you're constantly stressing about your future, whether you're doing it, quietly in your mind, or it's, you're talking about it out loud to your friends or to your family, then your now is being compromised. There's a quote that you guys, I don't know if you guys have heard of it before, but it's something like, if you are depressed or you're feeling low or regretful, you're living in the past. And if you are anxious and, you're just feel so stressed out, you're living in the future. And if you have like this peacefulness or this just kind of calm within you, then you're kind of in the present moment, because that's all you got. Okay. And your future depends on how you take care of your right now. So when you think about your future, because that's a natural thing to do, not only is, are your parents and society shoving that down your throat, like you got to get good grades, you got to get into a good school, you got to get a good job, you got to, okay, blah, blah, blah. It's your life. Okay. Sorry, parents, but it's your life, your time here, and it's you that has to take care of you. So you have to take care of your now so you can create the future that you deserve and that you absolutely desire. The next one, how you define yourself and what you value, that's going to determine the quality of your life, right? So, if you're constantly beating yourself up, right, with all your insecurities from how you look as a person on the outside, how you don't think you're smart enough, how you don't think you have enough friends, how, it just goes on and on. The list is just so long, and you guys know of that list. Then you're just derailing yourself from your future, from the future that you desire, that you deserve, by being just so toxic with your now. So if your values are not in alignment with your desired future, you can't get there. It's not a magic trick, okay? You can't get there. You have to put this desire and discipline into motion, okay? And your values, those are your guiding principles. You have to know who you are, what you stand for, what you're capable of. You have to know who you are. And the only way to learn who you are is to build a relationship with yourself. Life is an inside job, 100%. Whoops, let's see the next slide. Let's click over. Okay, technical difficulties here. Okay, and then this one, drum roll. This one is probably the most, this brings all three together. And this is what Life Launch Mantra is. It's the 10 most powerful 2-letter words you will ever have. If it is to be, it is up to me. That is 100% truth. Okay, it's not your teacher's fault, your parents' fault, your siblings, the COVID. It's not this and that. You have to learn how to be resilient on your own. You have to learn that it is you that is at the helm of your life. Okay, you are the greatest investment, period. It is so essential for you to always put your oxygen mask on first and begin to build that solid relationship with yourself. Because why? Well, because guess what? That's like one of the biggest, that's your greatest power that you possess, is the power to choose. And you may try to fight me on that and say, oh no, my parents, they make me do that. Yeah, you know what? Probably. I'm a parent, I have kids, I get that. All for your best interest, but you still have to figure out what's best for you. And you can always communicate that to your parents in a very respectful way so they can actually hear you. They just want what's best for you. But you have to figure out what's best for you. So that is the only way that you can become competent in something, is that you have to have experience in doing it. You don't get experience by watching YouTube videos. You don't get experience by sitting there watching Netflix. You don't get experience by listening to podcasts. You take what you see, what you learn, and you actually have to go do it. You learn by doing, right? So next slide. So the best teacher is experience. That is the most powerful and effective teacher of all. That was my daughter a long time ago when she was rock climbing. Scared me half to death, but she loves to rock climb and hang from her fingertips. So, but you get good at what you do a lot in. Did you hear what I said? And repeat that. You get good at what you do a lot of, okay? And that's good and that's bad. That goes for everything in your life. If you can't be a great tennis player, right, without consistent practice time, effort, desire, and discipline to do it. You can't feel calm and confident and have happiness in your heart if you're always choosing to let stress and anxiety and worries rule your brain and your body. So speaking of which, the brain and the body, hand in hand, right? Your brain development, okay, it depends on how it's used. And we know that the brain isn't even fully developed until age 25, 28. So you have this amazing opportunity to start cultivating these new patterns within your brain. It is just, I want you to be excited about this because the plasticity of the brain, you can retrain it. And that's what you need to do, because whatever you consciously or subconsciously are telling yourself, your body obeys those orders. Your thoughts become things, and those things affect your mental and your physical health. So whatever your brain is doing, it's creating grooves and patterns. So your awareness of this, your self-talk, is critical. And if it is to be, it is up to me. You can change this. You got to have desire and discipline to do it. It's not just going to be like, oh, I really want to have a cool life. Okay, no. You have to actually put the action behind it. So just for a quick example, so the power of your brain. So I usually do, I'm also a hypnotherapist, and that's the power of visualization. And Aristotle said, a vivid imagination compels the body to obey it. And that's exactly right. That's your brain at the helm. So if I were to lead you into like a guided visualization, I'd have you close your eyes. I would say, picture this lemon, grab that lemon, bring it up to your nose, slice it in half, bring it up to your face, and sink your teeth right into it right now. Just squeeze that juice right into your mouth. I'm telling you, your body is going to have this physiological response, even though it's just a thought. You're going to either pucker up, you're going to cringe, your mouth is going to salivate. The bottom line is that your thoughts absolutely control what your body does. Think how powerful that is, okay? We have to start using that to our advantage. We have to start training our brains to not bully our bodies. We are in charge. It just takes desire and discipline. And we tend to overlook this. But the great thing is that you have the power to choose every single moment, the power to create new habits. It just takes what? It takes experience. It takes desire and discipline. It takes consistency, time, and effort. And just as you have the power to notice a negative thought, a toxic thought, just stop it. Just notice it. Take the time to stop it. Your brain's like, oh my God, let's put on the brakes. They put on the brakes, you put on the brakes, and you reverse it. So instead of saying, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm always so tired. Stop that, because your brain goes, I'm so tired. Your body's like, oh, we are so tired. So it feels like you're even more tired. Instead saying, you know what, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go get some energy. I'm going to go do some jumping jacks. I'm going to take my dog for a walk. Change your thought immediately. It just takes time. So life, I always tell my kids this, life doesn't owe you anything, okay? It is you that determines the quality of your time here, how you want to spend it and how you want to feel in your skin. And I so loved Nakul's speech, because I loved when he says, I don't really care. I don't really care what people think. I'm glad I was rebellious. It saved his life. You have to start taking ownership of yourself, because life is such an inside job. And it just takes desire and discipline to get that traction. And then your brain is trained to help you and not hinder you. And no one needs help through the good times, as we talked about, right? The inevitable challenges are always going to be there. The struggles, the failures, the tragedies in life, the losses, that's going to be throughout your life. That's why this is a life skill. This is not a teen skill. This is a life skill. So I created this thing with Life Launch I call Get Your Grab Bag Ready. And you need to do this before a crisis happens, because what happens when we're not prepared for something, like some big rogue wave hits us, broadsides us, and we're like, oh, now we're supposed to like know what to do when crisis hits. You have to start putting these things into practice before you get hit, before you are in that debilitating spiral, be that nosedive, okay? You have to start doing these things on a daily basis when you feel great, okay? Because that's how a habit is built. Hopefully you're not having a crisis every single second. Hopefully you're having some good days. So you need to cultivate that habit that you are reaching for your grab bag to do some really cool things, self-nourishing things when you're feeling good. Add another layer of goodness to it. Get in the habit. So when that rogue wave hits you, that anxiety attack, that panic attack, that like overwhelm, that depression, that impulsiveness to just like give up, that you have something to reach for, okay? So my grab bag and my launchers grab bags that I work with, these are some of ours. You know, we just put stuff in there. It's like a metaphor. You actually have something that you can put like your box in, put little different write things in and put it in there, or just metaphorically have it, write it down in your journal, right? Be still and breathe, you know, go take a walk in nature, write in your journal, write a letter to somebody. No one ever writes anymore. Why don't you write a letter to your grandmother or to a friend that you went to camp with years ago? Dream, plan, think about your future, help others, get movement, okay? Energy begets energy. And I'm telling you, I feel so sorry for you guys with this online learning. I mean, you guys go from waking up in your bed to like rolling out of bed to then sitting in a chair to doing online learning to back to, you know, sitting in a chair to do your homework to back sitting on the couch to watch TV. It's like you have no energy. You are flatlined. And when you are flatlined, you feel depressed, you feel low, you feel unmotivated, unproductive. It's like you're unplugged. So get your grab bag ready with some of these. One of my favorites is Be the Otter. I do this daily. I am telling you, I do this daily. When I get all stressed out about work or COVID or this and that, I'm just like, okay, Jill, chill out. Okay. And I visualize that otter floating on his back. I get a better perspective. I breathe, I relax, I take a moment. Okay. Be the otter. One of my other favorites is Deliberate Acts of Goodness. Get out of yourself. You know, when we're looking at ourselves all the time with a microscope, you know, it's kind of looking at one of those makeup mirrors, you know, in the magnifying glass, and you're like, oh my God, my pores are huge. You know, you start picking yourself apart. Quit looking at yourself, okay? No one's looking at you, okay? Get out and help people. Whenever you're giving of yourself, I don't care if it's for an animal, for an elderly person, for a sibling, it makes you feel better. It takes you away from all the things that you're hyper focused on. So put that in your grab bag. So as we kind of wrap up, I just want you to know these are timeless life skills, okay? To know how to do this for yourself, that life is an inside job, that you have to learn how to renew your own body, your own mind, your soul. You've got to put that oxygen mask on first. And you have to start cultivating those new habits within your brain that will be trained and that you are at the helm of. You got to get your grab bag ready before a crisis hits. Use it. No one, I'm telling you, I work in the industry with people who go to college, and I'm telling you, the people that want to be, these employers who want to hire the next generation, they want the kids that have a balanced life, that know how to get along with people, that know how to take care of themselves, that know how to work together with the team, that they're just not on the, I got to do well and be the highest achiever. No one cares about that. Your life is a blink of an eye. Enjoy it, nourish it, honor it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got some shred of something, and I'm here. So if you ever need me, I want you to be sure to, oh yeah, remember, I love this too. Okay, remember that. You can start over, start late, be unsure, and still succeed. So I want to know what your story is going to be. That little person there is me, just so you know. That is me. And I want you to think about a little picture of you when you're little and how precious you are and how precious your life is. And look at that little person and say, I'm not going to let you down. We're going places. That's it. So thank you guys. And I'm here for any of your questions. That's where the magic's going to happen if you have questions. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jill. That I really like the way you articulated all of your thoughts and kind of created this understanding of how we can approach our mental health. But yeah, can we all unmute ourselves and give Jill a big round of applause?
Oh, you're so cute.
Thank you.
And also, because we didn't do it before, can we also give Nakul a big round of applause as well? All right. So now we'll be hearing from our final speaker, Dr. Daniel Eisenberg. He is a professor at the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. However, he also serves as the director of the Healthy Minds Network, which is a research-based study dedicated to improving the mental health and emotional well-being of young people like us. Dr. Eisenberg will now be sharing his research on the factors that contribute to students' mental health. Also, really quickly, can we do a quick sound check, Dr. Eisenberg?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Great. All right, go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you very much for having me here. I'm gonna share my screen. There we go. Does that work?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good. It's a pleasure to be here. I've recently returned to California. I actually was in the Bay Area for 11 years for college and grad school and a postdoc, and then went to Michigan for 16 years to start my faculty career. And now I'm back at UCLA, and I'm excited to be in California again. And so I'm certainly familiar with Saratoga. So I'm going to talk mainly about college student mental health. I know most of you are, if not all of you, maybe are pre-college, and probably most of you are planning to go to college in the near future. So hopefully this will be relevant to you as you think about what things are like. But I think a lot of what I'm going to say probably applies equally well to secondary school to high school age students. Let me see if I can, oops. Okay, so my background is actually in economics and public health. And for those of you who are thinking about future career paths and fields to get into, college majors, graduate school, and so on, I would encourage you, if you're interested in mental health, I'd encourage you to think about public health as a way to think about mental health, a field to get into to help understand mental health. And the reason is that public health, as you probably know, is about basically population health. It's about all the factors that affect health, not just medical care, but health behaviors, public policy, the environment, and so on. And mental health, as I'm sure you also know, is affected by pretty much every social and economic factor there is. And so in that sense, public health, a holistic kind of view of health as public health has, is ideal for studying mental health. And I guess also I'd just say economics, while certainly not necessary to study mental health, I found is a helpful lens as well, because economics, for me, kind of leads me to think about, well, how can we make the best use of our limited resources? What are the best investments in student mental health? That's basically the guiding question for me in my research. Okay. So there's a wealth of data sets. I'm going to fly through the remaining slides, and I'm certainly happy for you to have them to look at your leisure afterwards. So please don't worry about picking up all the details. I just want to kind of give you a sense of the data and research related to student mental health in the context of colleges, universities. So there's many great national data sets, and they're listed here. Healthy Minds in the bottom left, that's the data set that my research team has developed, and that's the one I'm going to focus on, but these other data sets are also very rich. So our Healthy Minds study started in 2005 at University of Michigan, where just as I was starting my faculty career. Since then, we've conducted the study at over 350 campuses around the country, and even in Canada and some other countries as well. And it's a web-based, so it's an online survey of student mental health, and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. By the way, we just this year are starting a high school version of it. So we're starting small, just a small number of schools. I don't think any in California yet, but potentially that's something that could grow. The topics in our survey, there's some core sections or core modules that are always in the survey, like demographic characteristics, service use and help-seeking behavior, mental health status, like depression symptoms. And then there's a whole bunch of other topics of which each campus can select 1 to 3 of them to go into more depth to round out the survey that they're conducting with their students. So here's a bunch of data that I'll just go through quickly. And what I'm going to show you first is that mental health symptoms appear to have risen significantly over time in the last 15 years or so. And particularly actually since around 2013, so the last 7 years or so, we've gone from around 9% of students with severe depressive symptoms to approximately double of that, 18% in our most recent years of data. Similar story with anxiety symptoms. These are just, some of you may know, but there's these brief screens, they're called, where it's just a small number of questions about symptoms of anxiety that we ask the students in the survey. And then if there's basically a simple formula or a cutoff for a number of symptoms and severity of symptoms, which would be deemed a positive screen. So it's the percent of students who have a positive screen, which it's not a clinical diagnosis. It just means that it's someone who potentially would be diagnosed with severe anxiety if a clinician actually were to assess that person. Thoughts of suicide, serious thoughts of suicide, again, approximately doubling in recent years. Now 14% or so students reporting that in the past year they've seriously thought about attempting suicide. If you want to read more about these trends, this is an article I'd recommend to you. It's not by our research team, but they use our data in one of the other nice data sets that I mentioned at the beginning. As you probably can imagine, there's a lot of interest in why are students reporting more distress. And by the way, it's not exclusive to college populations. Adolescent populations in general, so younger age groups, your age range, also is reporting the similar rise in anxiety and depression. And so one theory is that it has to do with the increasing use of digital and social media. I think that's, just to summarize a lot of research, there's a debate, but I would say that I'm convinced that probably is part of the story, but certainly not all of it. And sleep is related to that. The quality and amount of sleep that young people are getting these days seems to have gone down. So there's a lot of media attention to this. You've probably seen some of it. And also we're seeing a steep rise in the use of mental health care, of therapy and counseling, as well as medication for mental health. Again, approximately a doubling, although this trend has been going on for even before 2013, even since 2007, it's been a steady rise. And so in college campuses, many of them are getting overwhelmed with the demand for their services and are unable to offer the services to all the students who want them, or they have long waiting lists at times. And that's also happening in the community as well. So it's not just college campuses. I'm just going to move a little faster here. And again, you'll have all these numbers, all this data afterwards to look at more slowly if you'd like. One explanation for why service use is going up is that stigma or negative attitudes about mental illnesses seems to be improving. And so I think it's not just a purely pessimistic story that I'm trying to tell. It's also, I think, a positive story in the sense, and I think it's reflected in the fact that you're holding this event and that it's being even that some of you as teens are actually helping to organize an event like this reflects the fact that young people today are so interested in mental health and so motivated to address it. And so the attitudes related to mental illnesses and mental health have improved a lot, and the openness to discuss these issues has improved a lot. That's certainly part of the story. If you want to read more about the increase in service use among college students, here's an article by our research team that you could check out. We also, in our survey, measure a lot of factors that are correlated with mental health, that risk and protective factors. And a lot of them are the ones that you would probably guess, like sleep problems, students who experience discrimination or a negative culture on their campus, those who experience financial stress or have experienced a sexual assault. Those are students who are at much higher risk of reporting depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. On the protective side, we see students who report having more coping and resilience skills, more physical activity, more social support, more of a sense of belonging in their campus, are less likely to experience these mental health problems. Of course, COVID-19, the pandemic, as I think was just mentioned, is important here as well. It's difficult for everybody, and probably particularly for students, college students, high school students who are so used to all the social interactions and the energy you get from being on campus. And so we've asked in our survey recently, this is from April primarily, so just after the lockdowns or the stay-at-home orders and restrictions came about in the US, and financial situation for students was becoming more stressful. They're experiencing more difficulty accessing mental health care. Actually, the symptom levels did not appear to go up significantly when we looked at students in April as compared to the prior fall. But I think we've seen other research more recently that students are experiencing more anxiety and depression as the pandemic has worn on. I just want to, I know my time's limited here, so just to highlight a few other things. As you'd expect, students of color are more likely to report that they've experienced discrimination in the previous year, as well as students with, so transgender students, for example, students who report bisexual or gay, lesbian, or questioning sexual orientation, also more likely to report having experienced discrimination, and that's highly correlated with mental health. So there's a lot of equity issues. I'm sure you all are talking about it within the context of high school and your community, and college campuses as well. It's a very active discussion. So I think a lot of positive to take from that attention and the initiatives that are happening, but it's because of some very deep-rooted issues that are difficult for communities. Okay, so what are some of the potential solutions for these mental health challenges that I'm describing? And just to highlight a few resources, things that you might look up as you go into college or even before, if you want to get involved. The Steve Fund is an organization that focuses on students of color in mental health, and they have an equity and mental health framework that they developed in collaboration with the JED Foundation. The JED Foundation is another key organization to take a look at for student mental health. Through some of our research, to try to help advocate, to help campuses advocate for more resources, for example, more counselors. We've developed an economic case for investing in student mental health, which is based on our research showing that higher depressive symptoms, higher anxiety symptoms predict a higher risk of dropping out of college. And so that leads to the logic that if we could reduce depression, whether it's through treatment or prevention, then we actually would have economic returns in terms of retaining students and their tuition, if you're thinking about from a financial standpoint, for more importantly, enabling students to stay in college longer and to graduate, which means that their lifetime economic productivity is going to be significantly higher. We know that from tons of economic research. Online therapy, digital therapy is, of course, some of you probably have tried it or know about it, is increasingly popular, particularly during the pandemic, but even before, and a lot of campuses are starting to offer their students some form of online therapy. And so we're doing a large randomized trial of an online cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT program. And we're still enrolling new campuses to look at that. But the basic question is, what's the impact of offering online therapy to students as a supplement to their traditional services, like their counseling center and their health center that they already have access to? And last thing I want to mention is what I think is going to make a big difference kind of on a broad scale for student mental health, both at the college and high school level, is what I'm calling a best practices initiative, but it's basically a more rigorous attention to evidence and what programs actually work, I'm not talking so much about clinical programs. I'm talking more about kind of population level or public health programs to address mental health. The evidence is murky and it's incomplete, but there are some programs with good evidence. And I think that access to information about which programs actually are most effective, that information I think is not sufficiently well known among the decision makers, like the administrators, the university leaders who are making decisions about how to invest their resources. So I think we need to improve that situation by essentially making best practices more well-known, getting the information about that more accessible. This is an example actually in the context of alcohol prevention in college campuses. This is sort of a best practices initiative. It's a website, College AIM. You can see right there at the top, where they have a list of different programs, and it's really easy to browse a site and look at, well, what's the evidence level? What programs have the best evidence? What have kind of medium level evidence? What are the most costly programs, the less costly? So it's kind of a simple table to help guide decision making about how to invest resources. And I'm envisioning something similar, although I'd like to go beyond just a website, have it kind of more of a community that surrounds an information resource for student mental health. So that's what I have to share, and I look forward to discussion. Thanks very much again for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eisenberg, for your wonderful presentation on research you've done. And now we'll be moving into our Q&A panel. So if anyone has any questions for any of the speakers in this event, please be sure to write your question in the chat and specify which speaker it is directed to. So our first question will be directed at Jill Henderson, and the question from the audience is, how did you formulate the idea of your universal truths and your grab-and-go bag?
Oh, well, great question. Because of you guys. Because I had kids going through high school, and I watched how you were all suffering. And this is supposed to be your childhood, the time of your life. You're getting ready to emerge into that adulthood. And I wanted to be sure that once my last child launched, that I could commit 100% and starting something that I could give back to help you guys. So Life Launch, that's what it is. And it's really you guys coming in here, and we co-collaborate, we co-inspire, and we come up with these things. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Our second question is directed at Nakul, and it is, what are some personal examples you have of this desire for academic superiority, and how were you able to push your Indian parents to take you to a doctor?
Okay, so I mean, when I mean academic superiority, it was always kind of just aiming for 4.0s. It was aiming for like high test scores. It wasn't actually focusing on learning the material. It was more just, I need this grade, and it just had absolutely nothing to do with learning. As for pushing my parents, I mean, I kind of said, I didn't exactly say that I felt like. Well, I mean, I had like a feeling that I was depressed and anxious, but I didn't exactly say that. I just said I need to go see a doctor. And so that's kind of how it worked. It was kind of vague, but then I talked to the doctor, and then, they did their diagnostic thing or whatever. And then that's how I got diagnosed.
Thank you. Our next question is directed at Dr. Eisenberg, and it is, how did you get into this field of study? What motivates you to take on what seems to be really challenging and taxing research?
I think it's kind of partly, it's sort of like it all makes sense, and partly there's some randomness. I think that's the way life often works. So the way it all makes sense, I think, is that I've always been interested in sort of big picture issues. Like if I arrive in a new town or something, I want to look at a map. I want to see where I am. And like when I do research, I want to study something that affects entire populations. And that's why I picked economics, and that's why I picked public health, and that's why I picked mental health. And then high school students is a very large proportion of the population, and college students, you've got approximately, it's over half, I think, of each youth cohort in the US goes to college. at some point. So it's a large population in that sense. So, and if you want to have an impact at a large scale, then then student mental health, I think, is a good way to think. That the random part of it is just that when I was a postdoc at Berkeley, I was just contacted by a graduate student who wanted to start an advocacy effort related to graduate student mental health. And so I never really thought about student mental health as a research area until she started telling me about what she was thinking about in a survey she wanted to conduct. And that piqued my interest. And I was fresh out of grad school, and where I kind of saw one's mental health is so important to actually maintain engagement in a difficult academic program. And so that resonated with me.
Great. Our next question is directed back at Nakul, and it is, what were some strategies that you used to bring yourself up when you felt really down?
So a lot of the strategies I use, Jill already talked about, but basically whenever I learned whenever I would start to feel down, if I just let myself sit there, I would actually start to feel more down. So I would just try to do, so I went through this DBT program also about a year ago now, and we learned to just do the opposite of what we felt like we're doing when we're depressed. So if I felt like going and laying on my bed, I would go for a hike, for example. I would kind of just do the opposite to, kind of overcome that depression in my head and tell myself, no, I'm going to do this instead. And then I would feel better afterwards.
Great. Our next question is actually directed at all of the speakers, and it is, how can we as teens support each other and be on the lookout for signs of deteriorating mental health in others? So anyone who wants to give a go?
I'll always give it a go. So the question is, can you repeat the question, how we can all come together to make a difference? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and the question actually specifies, how can we as teens support each other and be on the lookout for signs of mental health?
Yeah, so look, you guys, there's no secret, okay? COVID makes it actually difficult because you've lost your rhythm to be out together and socialize in the halls and after school and this and that. So you have to kind of count on your devices right now to be sure that you reach out and that you take time to connect with each other and that you actually, are going to, get real quick. Talk about what's going on. That is, I think I said it before, fear is that reaction, and it really takes courage and true strength to actually talk about what's going on. I'm just going to tell you, all the kids that I work with up to age 25, they all are experiencing everything that you're talking about. And from the outside looking in, I would never think, looking at them, because they have great parents, they have great this, they have great that, they feel privileged. Doesn't matter. They're still experiencing the same disconnect, the same kind of negative talk. So actually have real talk about it. Check in with each other. It's all about communication and connecting. Don't lose that. Do not isolate. Connect. That's my 8 cents.
Yeah, I would echo what Jill just said, and I think there's a lot of research on what are called gatekeeper training programs, where you try to give non-mental health professionals or even peers lots of information and training about how to look out for each other and have supportive conversations and refer to resources. And a lot of those programs actually don't work very well. I think the problem is that they tend to focus on just giving tons of information. Whereas I think what Jill is saying is what I would say is that it's not so much necessarily about knowing exactly all the symptoms and exactly the right thing to say, but it's more just about being vigilant and overcoming the fear or the awkwardness to actually just have the conversation, open the conversation, show the support, and that's going to be positive. It's not a matter of trying to diagnose your friend or saying exactly the right thing. I think people get stuck on that sometimes.
All right, great. Thank you. Our next question is directed at Dr. Eisenberg, and it is, what do you see happening in the future in terms of mental health research?
That's a big question. I think obviously technology is going to be a big part of that. It already is. So I think I think a lot of the research is going to be about like how, actually, let me just say, let me highlight one important area with technology. We know that online therapy can work, and we know that apps, when well done, can be helpful. The problem is that people, whether they're young or old or in between, for any given app or online program, they don't engage with it for long. They may not even try it, and if they do, they're not going to stick with it. There's just so many things that you can be doing online. There's too many choices, too much competition, too many other engaging things, and you don't have that human contact to foster engagement. So I think the key in terms of research is like, how can we foster engagement with the helpful resources that are available, whether online or not, but especially online, because it's so hard to engage people. And I think part of the answer is going to be that if online resources and digital resources can be somehow connected to people's in-person lives, like on campus, you've got peers or other supportive adults who are actually helping you engage with the app, introduce it to you, reinforce it. Maybe it's your clinician who does that, your therapist. I think that link, I think, is going to differentiate the resources that get used versus those that get ignored.
Great. Our next question is directed at Nakul, and it is, did you use medication to stabilize your mental health?
So I did try medication at one point a couple of years ago, but I had a lot of side effects to it. So it actually made it worse for me. And that's why now I've just been, using therapy to get better.
Great. And our next question is directed to all the speakers. So are there some particular activities that kids can do to lift up their moods?
Tons of activities. I mean, look, this is where, it's really important to figure out what you really like to do or try something new. And I know COVID's tough, but you still got the outside world. And I think music is huge. Seems like everyone, I don't care what age, play music that you love, get out there and move. It's hard to do things together because of this new kind of wave of shelter in place. But if we weren't in COVID, I would say, planning on any kind of thing, for walking your dogs together, going to the beach together, it all goes down to experiencing things together. Like it's having that connection. That's what we've lost. We're so busy here. We're so, always looking and checking the followers and TikToking and all. It's such a distraction and such a disconnection of real life. But the problem is that it seems like the majority of people are doing it, right? Because that's the way you guys have grown up. I mean, it's not your fault. It's, how do I balance this? So I liked what Nicole said about doing the opposite. That is so great. When you're feeling like, you feel flatline, no energy, then go do something. When you're feeling disconnected, go ahead and reach out and order a pizza and eat it in the parking lot. Take time to make the connections. Don't isolate yourselves. Be inventive, be imaginative.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I like that's a wonderful answer, Jill. I guess I'll just add as a researcher, I can confirm, you don't need me to say this because everyone knows this, but exercise definitely improves mental health, and social activity, social interactions definitely does as well. I'd add meditation as another on that list. Very clear evidence of being helpful for people's mental health. I saw Birgit mention that you can access the Headspace app through the library on the chat. So that's one app that does a great job helping people with meditation.
Great. Our next question is directed at Jill, and it is, sorry, give me a second. For freshmen who are coming into school, what is your advice for them in regards to mental health?
I think the younger, the better. So I love that. If you can start taking care, really doing that desire and discipline of your self-care, building that relationship with yourself at this early age, you will sail much easier through high school. You will have calm, you will have peace, you will have that groundedness. I'm telling you, there's that beautiful quote that is by, it's one of my favorites, by Henry Thurman, and he says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do that, because that's what the world needs, is for people to come alive. So really take this time, whether you're going to be a freshman or wherever you are right now in your age, is to, this COVID time is such a great time to be self-reflective, of like setting a plan, of really kind of listening to who you are inside, dreaming outside the box of SAT scores, ACT, oh my gosh, I would call it. Okay, that is a blip and that is fantastic, but really start tapping in during this time of the things that you love to do, the things that get you excited. Really start learning who you are. Build your relationship with yourself.
Thanks, Jill. Our next question is back at Dr. Eisenberg. So it's, what are one of the most surprising insights that you've gained from your research?
Well, I guess actually, so one thing that would surprise us in our data early on is that we're trying to understand more. Even though a lot of young people are using mental health care more than ever, there's still, as you all know, there's still a large proportion of young people who are really suffering and are not accessing services for a variety of reasons. And so we wanted to understand, well, what is happening? What's the experience for those college students who are, high levels of depression, anxiety, or even suicide risk and are not accessing services? Why are they not? And what could we do? And I think sort of the traditional answer is stigma, that people have trouble, either they personally have sort of prejudicial attitudes or negative attitudes about the idea of seeking help, or they worry that other people do, or both. But actually from our data, it seemed like that's important, yes, but it's not the dominant explanation. And it got us thinking, a lot of when we asked students in their survey, like basically, why have you not used mental health services? We word it a little bit more tactfully, but what are some of the factors that have influenced your decision not to, or the fact that you have not received care? And some of the most common responses are, I don't have time. I think my problems are going to get better on their own. I don't think my problems are serious enough to warrant seeking help. So it's not the traditional notion of stigma. I think it's more that there isn't this urgency or like this salience to actually seeking help. It's more like something that, I'm vaguely aware that I'm struggling, but it's not something I really need to do right away. And I think people will kind of keep procrastinating in a sense, just like we do with all kinds of other things, like our eating healthy or getting enough sleep or exercising. And so in that sense, it's not surprising. We procrastinate about our health in lots of different ways. And so the key then is, well, how can we kind of bring it more to the fore, more to the present, make it feel more urgent, or maybe just more convenient? For a lot of students, I think it's probably just a matter of, if it were just easier to access care, then students would take that step. But it doesn't require something major, a major shift in attitude. It's really kind of a more subtle nudge type of intervention that might be helpful.
Thank you for that. Our next question is directed at Nakul, and it is, how did you finally stop caring about what other people think and really think about yourself?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I haven't stopped entirely caring about what other people think, but because I think I still think I have to like grow in that area where I need more practice with that. But so my first thought is still, yes, other people are going to judge, but I do have like this inner mindset that says, why the hell do I care, basically? So, you know, and I feel like I'm still working on that. So eventually I feel like I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to start caring even less about what other people think, but I'm still not there yet. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Our next question is at Dr. Eisenberg, and it is, so our schools, they have recently been trying to implement different programs regarding mental health, and lots of them, they haven't been working very well. And just what do you look for in a mental health program?
Yeah, I think that sort of relates to my comment at the end of my presentation about the need for more clarity about what are the best practices, what actually works, because it's not this many. There are a lot of things out there that aren't working. That's a very perceptive question that's being asked. What to look for? I guess this is maybe not the most practical answer, but I mean, look for research, look for clear evidence of effectiveness when a program is being selected. And I guess what I was saying in my presentation is, unfortunately, it's not as simple as just going to a website and then there's a list of programs that work, but there are examples. And that, so for example, in the context of children and youth more broadly, from birth through young adulthood, there's a website called Blueprints Programs. I think it's blueprintsprograms.org. It's basically a registry or repository of evidence-based practices, which highlights what are the programs that are most effective at the best evidence to help with youth and child development. So it's broader than mental health, and a lot of it is like pre-kindergarten or very early childhood. But I think if you want to think about like what does good evidence look like and how can we communicate that effectively, I think that is one example to take a look at. But we need something like that for student mental health, and that's what our group is hoping to work on. So hopefully I'll have a better answer in the coming years, and it would invite your collaboration if anybody wants to help in the future with that.
Is it okay if I jump on that question a little bit on the answer? So I think it's really important to talk about why we don't have, when we're talking about these programs that should be available and which program it should be. I personally believe, and I've been trying to be the advocate for it, is to have these life essentials, these self skills, these self essentials start in kindergarten. And then they build upon each other, age appropriate, right? Because what's happened is that it's like this, you guys have this IV in you, like this slow drip of expectation and buildup of achievement. And it just, by the time that you are in high school, we've lost so many, you guys are just not equipped to handle the next step of bigger responsibilities. Now you have to, you guys are exhausted. You guys are doing like a sprint. Your pace is like a sprint during a very endurance journey, right? And we have to figure that out. And I actually went to Sacramento, to our state capital, and I actually tried to talk to a few people there that were in charge, and they said, look, Jill, people are not willing, because it comes from the top down, the colleges, they are telling the high schools, right, they're not going to get rid of the APs, the classes. They're not going to get rid of the math and the sciences and this and that to put a life skills class. And back to Nakul, what he said is, it's so true. It's like, it has nothing to do with your grades and your achievement. It is not going to relate to your happiness and the big scope of things. It's going to be how your health is about yourself and how you're able to lead a balanced life and how to navigate through the ups and downs and to know yourself, right? There's no shortage of smart people. They're all over this valley. Bay Area is like off the charts with that. But we have to start at a younger age and start putting these practices in, putting the meditation in. That is so important. I wish that I had that in high school. So it's these little things that we can do, that we can, if we can't do it in the schools, which I think there should be a life skills, self-skills class that is required. I think you need it to graduate. Then we should be doing these things at home. And those are the types of programs that I would be looking at, the ones that nurture that self-care. That's what I would do. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thanks for the great insight. Next question is actually back at you, Jill. It is, how do you actually find the things that you love doing?
Wow, that's a really good question. How do you find the things that you love doing? Well, you have to explore, you have to experiment, you have to be a participant in your own life. Whether you're a big reader, whether you're a big movie watcher, whether you like to write songs, whether you like to be out in nature, whether you have to expose yourself to different things. And I know that COVID is so tough, and I feel for you guys so much because you only get one shot at this youth, and I want you to have that rite of passage to be able to have that carefreeness and have that freedom, right? But to find the things that you love, you have to poke around. It's not just going to fall into your lap. You may stumble upon something that someone talks about. Oh my gosh, I was traveling in Rome and I did blah, blah, blah. You may go, oh my God, you did that. And you may just little sparks of interest. Be aware, be present. And be excited about wanting to learn new things and take chances. Take some chances. You may think, oh, I want to go to culinary school, but God, I really, really love to paint. Try things. Just keep trying things.
Thank you. Our next question is at Nakul, and it is, how would you say the Saratoga School District has helped you with mental health issues? Or did they help you, or did they hurt you more?
So I think it's a little bit ironic because I feel like although the stigma in the Bay Area is really bad regarding mental health, I feel like the staff have actually been really helpful to me. I do have accommodations and they're always really supportive and stuff. So I think Saratoga, sorry, you asked about Saratoga High, right? Was that the question? Yeah, I think Saratoga, I don't know how Los Gatos is, but at least in Saratoga High, I think the staff are very supportive. And, we have, I think we have decent mental health services. It's obviously not ideal because of, the workload and stuff. But I think the staff and administration are very supportive and understanding.
Great, thank you. And the last question for today will be directed at all three. And it is, if our friends are struggling in quarantine, how should we provide them with support, since we can't really provide any of these experiences face to face?
Well, I think that the only thing that you can do is to show up. And I mean that literally and figuratively, that you hold space for them, that you tell them, like, look, we're in this together. There is so much strength and comfort knowing that you're traveling in a pod, in a tribe together, and that you can relate to these things. Be there for each other. Talk about it. And I kind of do the 10-second rule when you're not feeling great, like when you're by yourself. And I kind of apply that too with the kids, is that go ahead and talk about the things that really are bothering you. I think that's super important to acknowledge, address, assess it. But then there's a point in time where you have to turn the corner, and you have to focus on the things that really excite you, that maybe you don't know what that is. And that's okay, because you're evolving and you're adapting. But you don't want to do the misery loves company thing too much, because that kind of does the grooves and the patterns of your brain, like staying in that, right? You want to be sure that you don't want your boohoo moments to define you. You want those boohoo moments to be an opportunity to say, how can I put X, Y, or Z in place to not feel this way? And talk about strategies together. Talk about what works for you. Nicole's speech was just so profound to me that, what works for him could hopefully work for other people. And you guys all have different experiences. So share those experiences with each other and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can put all of this stuff in my grab bag. So talk and learn and share perspectives, because you will find that you'll have a treasure trove of really great things to pull from each other. We are all each other's teacher and we are all students together. So we're all in this together. So have comfort in that.
And maybe just one, if I were in Saratoga and I don't know, if I were in your shoes, one thing I might consider would be like going for, there's so many beautiful hikes, as you all know, around there, and nature areas. So you get exercise, you get nature, you can actually be together with masks, social distance. I think that's still allowed. But while it's still allowed, that seems like that's one thing that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think maintaining connections and, having like a regular time, or, like just making sure you meet up, or not, like, even like video chat with people, like maybe even once a week or something. I think that's really important, because that we get into the schedule of doing that. Because I feel like, with COVID and stuff, we tend to just, like, sit and watch Netflix, and we actually don't really remember to go and have these interactions with people. So I think, having like a set time with friends or something to go and interact will, be helpful for everyone.
Great. Thanks everyone for the super great Q&A, and I'm going to give it back to Viraj and Nibby.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask, would our speakers be willing to put your contact information in the chat for the people who may not have been comfortable to ask in this format or have any questions later on along the line?
Absolutely.
That would be great. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Viraj.
Yeah, so with that, SED Talks is getting wrapped up. Once again, thank you to everyone for attending our very first SED Talks, and a huge thank you to Jill, Nicole, and Dr. Eisenberg. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences. If we could have one last round of applause for our speakers, if everyone could unmute.
Not everyone can unmute.
All right, yeah, that's about it. Once again, thank you all for coming, and keep a lookout for our next SED Talks covering overcoming obstacles in entrepreneurship, and that'll be next spring. Be sure to check the City of Saratoga's website and the library website for any future events. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you guys so much. It was such an honor to be a part of this, and I hope that you guys just continue to lean into this. You're going to do just fine. Just fine. I love those little claps. Look at those little claps. Okay. Thank you for having us.
Take care, everyone.
You guys.
See you later.